Welcome to the Costume Plot.
I'm Josie.
And I'm Sarah Tim. We're professional designers with a passion for costume design and the performing arts. Our podcast does contain spoilers. Accompanying slideshows for each movie are linked in the episode description.
We hope you'll join us every other week as we delve into the wonderful world of costume design in the Costume Plot. All right.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome back to the Costume Plot.
Here we are again. So nice to be here.
And just one episode today. Yay.
Yeah, it always feels a little more relaxed when we only have to record one at a time.
The back-to-backs definitely feel like a lot more pressure.
Yeah, and it's just, it's more homework too, even though it's enjoyable homework.
Very true. Very true.
So Jojo and I were just talking about this, but I'm going to say it to our listeners. I think we've decided we're going to, in addition to having our photos on Instagram and on the YouTube slideshows, we're going to start a Pinterest account so that each episode has its own Pinterest board. Because we're finding limitations in Instagram, like only being able to post a certain amount of images, and we don't really like cutting ourselves down as much as we have to.
Especially for some of these more fun movies with fun costumes.
Yeah, there are some where I'm just like, I'm not willing to make any more cuts. I have to talk all about all of these. So that'll be going up soon, hopefully. We'll obviously link to it. I'm probably going to have to put like a link tree in our Instagram bio so that like you can access all of the stuff you have to access.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
Thanks for doing that, Sarah.
Sure.
Sarah's been working hard.
Yeah. So, and then we're working on transcribing too. We want to make the podcast more accessible, and we're, trying to fit it into both of our busy schedules. So we're doing it as fast as we can. It's kind of slow going.
Thank you for being patient with us.
Yeah. Currently we have transcripts for episodes 11 through 15 up. And those are linked in the episode descriptions, and then they're all in a Tumblr blog. So it's just thecostumeplot.tumblr.com if you want to go look at all of them.
Perfect.
So that's all the
Thanks,
business.
Sarah. I was looking at some of your Instagram, our stories that we were posting about how it translated to coffee pot instead of the costume plot. And that definitely happened to me on more than one occasion. So I was like, yep, we are now the coffee pot and not the costume plot.
I could not stop laughing. And every time I think about it, it makes me giggle. Welcome to the coffee pot.
I mean, I guess if you're listening to us in the morning, it's a good coffee pot waker upper.
It's almost like it was that sounds like something that like you feed into Google Translate and it like translates it wrong.
Yeah.
The coffee pot.
That's how we get like other language translations incorrect. Because Google just translates it to the wrong thing.
Exactly. That's what it I love it. Well,
funny.
Anyway, welcome to the coffee pot. Thanks for listening.
Yes. So I'm really excited about our theme today, Sarah. You want to tell our audience what our theme is?
Yes.
We were excited about this since last episode.
I've been stoked because the theme might as well be like two of Sarah's absolute favorite movies in the world. But our theme is we were going to do like movie musicals. And then we started talking about movies that just have music. So I think we're calling this theme Comedies with Music.
Yes.
And so I have
chosen... Very appropriate way to describe that.
Right. And there are a lot of like other movies that I even thought of that could fit in this theme. So like we could do a repeat of this theme because there's a lot of fun movies like this.
So many. I
have chosen one of my absolute favorite movies in the world, Josie and the Pussycats.
So good.
So let's just dive right in. My personal history with this film is that I don't know if I saw it in theaters, but my best friend in 7th grade, Rochelle, owned it. So every time I went to her house, I made her watch it with me because I didn't own it.
I love that.
And then we would like I remember us walking to class quoting it back and forth and people like teasing us because we wouldn't stop giggling and quoting Josie and the Pussycats. So it's very special to me. And also it's recently sort of like in the news again because it's had its 20th anniversary this last month.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Which
so
made me
good.
feel ancient.
You and me both, Sarah.
Yeah. And also, I think that Gen Z has kind of discovered it a little bit because Gen Z are really into like Y2K stuff and early 2000s. So I'll just say this right now. It was a pretty big budget movie and it bombed at the box office, but it's become a cult favorite now. And it's only getting more popular as the years go on, which makes me very happy because I have loved it since 2001. And I feel validated.
It makes me laugh too because like the new show Riverdale on CW has like kind of brought back that whole Archie comics and Josie and the Pussycats world back into play. So it's like people that are watching that now, I don't know that they realize there was an original Josie and the Pussycats and like an actual comic that all of that whole world was based on. But I don't know. I just really love that whole like concept of focusing on the characters from that world and from that comic.
I love the Josie in Riverdale too. I would watch a spinoff about her. I do too. I think she's great.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great.
So it was based on Archie comics, like you said, and it's also there was a Hanna-Barbera cartoon series of Josie and the Pussycats in the 70s. Ooh. So they took some of their visual inspiration from the cartoon as well. Like I said, it came out in 2001. The directors are Harry Elfon and Deborah Kaplan, who are a team who work together a lot. They also wrote it, and they also wrote and directed Can't Hardly Wait, and they have a couple of other projects too. Their IMDb's were not substantial, but like what they had was good stuff, you know? The costumes are by Lisa Evans, who is kind of like a go-to designer for comedies. So she did Trainwreck, she did Bridesmaids, which is one of my favorites, American Pie. She's done a lot of Judd Apatow stuff. And then her most current credit is the new live-action Powerpuff Girls show, which
I can't wait. I'm so excited.
I was like, oh,
Chloe
man.
Bennett's gonna be the pink Powerpuff Girl, I think. Blossom?
There's Bubbles, but Buttercup is the green one, right? Blossom is the pink one.
Blossom's the pink one.
And then Bubbles is blue.
Chloe Bennett from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going to be playing Blossom. So I'm very excited.
I know that on Twitter there was like a set picture and everybody was really upset with the costumes, but it seemed to me that like maybe I don't know like what they're doing with it, but it seemed to me like it was sort of like, you know how in like the very first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man, his first Spider-Man outfit is like sweatpants. I feel like that's that. It's like their first iteration.
Oh, yeah, like kind of how they started.
Yeah. And I was not ready to freak out with everyone else. I'm like, I'll wait. I'll reserve my judgment.
Plus it's so early right now that it's possible that they just posted some like promo material that has nothing to do with the actual what's going to be in the film.
Or it could have been like, I don't even know if it was officially like a released photo or if it was like someone had snuck the photo, like a paparazzi thing. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
So who knows? But
that's exciting though.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I said, it was a bomb at the box office. It had a budget of around $30 million, but it made like 15, which is upsetting.
Barely half.
Yeah. I think it's because like it's a really smart satire, but a lot of like reviews at the time didn't quite get that it was a satire. And it was like self-aware. And even I read in like the Wikipedia that it has been sort of re-reviewed by critics over the years. And they've come around to it actually being smarter than they gave it credit for in 2001, which is very interesting.
So sad that it happened later.
I know. Another notable thing about this movie is that it's full of product placement, which is like part of the whole message about like capitalism and branding. And pretty much all of that product placement was not paid for. They just did it without getting without like the companies giving them money for it. So they were basically advertising these companies for free because they wanted to do this whole branding thing, which I thought was funny.
Interesting.
Yeah, and it's a pretty prescient like look at how the media landscape has evolved. Like it's a satire, and it's sort of like a hyper
realized.
Yeah, version of media and stuff. And I think it was pretty ahead of its time in terms of now what we see with celebrities and like people being a brand and everything about being selling yourself. So I think that it was pretty ahead of its time there.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into these costumes.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just so good.
Okay. So this is du jour, the boy band. Oh, so just a brief plot rundown. This is about Josie and the Pussycats. They're a trio. They're a rock band, and they get signed like spur of the moment by this record label guy, but it turns out that the record label, Mega Records, is sending subliminal messages through the music that they sell to get teenagers to buy stuff, basically. And it's like a government operation, and it's like this whole underground secret thing where they're conspiring to make the youth of America into mindless capitalist drones, basically. So du jour is the boy band at the opening of the movie that are they're the band du jour of the moment, and they figure it out. And then Mega Records basically crashes their plane to kill them so that they don't spill the secret of the subliminal message, but they don't die. Thank goodness for that.
Phew.
Yeah. So, and this is actually like fun cameos too, because this is Donald Faison from Scrubs.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I forgot he was in this movie.
And then Seth Green is in the top hat, and then Breckenmeyer from Clueless is in the bandana. I don't know who the fourth guy is, so sorry to that man.
Sorry, no name.
I like, Lisa Evans said that she's a big fan of like monochrome. She likes to kind of tell a visual story by dressing characters all in like the same versions of the same color. And I can see that all over this movie. She uses it to tie people together, and especially the pop groups. Like they're basically like every time you see them together, they're dressed all in a theme. So du jour here has like a red and black fire theme. I like the ohm symbol right here because it's like so typical like early aughts like faux spiritualism kind of thing. And then the boa and the top hat is a little bit out of left field.
Yeah, definitely. Especially against everybody else.
Yeah.
Like I can see the color matching, but the silhouette is definitely very different.
It makes me wonder, like, if they made a decision about this specific character that the audience just isn't aware of. Like, is he a fan of, I don't know, Elton John or something? I don't know.
Could be. I will say that the no-name character makes me think of Kevin from Backstreet Boys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he has a similar face.
Like, sort of just the way he dresses and kind of, like, body structure and also face shape and structure as well.
Very Kevin from Backstreet Boys. I will also say this soundtrack is nonstop bangers and is not on Spotify. So this is my formal application to Spotify. Get your act together.
That is so disappointing.
I'm going to double check right now because it wasn't. What if they have added it recently, Josie?
Maybe this is the final push.
Oh my God,
it's
on Spotify now. Oh my God, I take it back.
Oh, yes.
I take it back. It's on Spotify.
Your phone heard you, Sarah.
Maybe they added it for the 20th anniversary or something. They were like, yeah, we got to get it on there.
Could be.
Okay. I take it back. I'm sorry. Sorry, Spotify, for yelling at you. Okay. So moving on. This is the Pussycats before their superstardom when they're playing at the bowling alley. They're very sort of thrift store fashion. And I learned there's a Nylon article that came out last month, an interview with Lisa Evans, which I was really grateful for because it's like, if the 20th anniversary hadn't happened, I wouldn't have these tidbits from Lisa. Because this is an older movie, It's not always easy to find interviews. She said that she and her team built like 90% of the costumes, which was surprising to me.
Wow.
Because it's like a contemporary movie. But she said that she it was important to her that she was looking into like trend forecasting and stuff and looking ahead of where they were when they were filming it. And she couldn't buy what she wanted off the rack. Which is like super low rise. They wear a lot of bell bottoms, and apparently those were not quite out in 2001. They were coming. You know, we spent a lot of our time in the early aughts in bell bottoms. At least I did. So she built a ton of this, which I was just like, I mean, it makes sense because it's a big budget movie, but you don't automatically look at a contemporary movie and think, oh, they built all of it. So we have on the right, we have Josie. She's like a jeans and t-shirts kind of girl. A lot of her stuff it has like raw edges, like she's cut it up and DIY'd it. And then in the middle, we have Tara Reid at a career best, doing her best work.
Yeah.
It's kind of all downhill from here for Tara Reid, unfortunately.
Yeah.
She's sort of like a hippie. Oh, Lisa said about her character's name is Melody. She said, Tara Reid's character's case, her whole thing was tripping upward. So there was this idea of, her pants are so low, but somehow they stay on. And her tops seem like they just have a tiny piece of tape attached. She had a free spirit, and there wasn't anything about her clothes that was encumbering her experience. So that's her vibe.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, a lot of her clothes are just like one single string holding it on kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then on the left, we have Rosario Dawson as Valerie. And she's a little bit more like, she wears a little bit more structural stuff, but she also wears dresses. And the other two don't really wear dresses. So you see her in sort of like a midi length dress right here.
Ooh, I forgot how many dresses she wore in this.
Yeah. This is right before they get their big makeover. So they're about to be attacked by like the John Frieda stylists, which is a fun scene.
Isn't that Alan Cummings in the back too?
Yes. He plays Wyatt.
He keeps popping up in our movies.
I know. He's a prolific actor. He does really a lot of good work. He plays Wyatt, the Mega Records manager guy, and he's very funny.
Yes.
Okay. Oh, I'm going to talk a little bit about the makeup. So, like, speaking of the makeover scene, I could only find good shots of Melody, so I'm going to use her kind of as an example. This is her before the big pop star makeover. So she has like green eyeshadow, which seems really 70s to me, and that kind of fits with her vibe. You can really see the 70s inspiration in her clothes.
Right.
And then Josie and Valerie are very like natural barefaced before the makeover. And then their makeover is very typical of early aughts. It's really frosty colors, lots of like lavenders and pinks and pearlescent stuff, and a lot of body glitter, which just takes me back.
Oh, all the body glitter.
So this is her in the makeover scene. You can see like the lavender and pink of it all. I know. And then I have a few pictures of them in their super pop star like iterations. This is from their music video for their single. So you can,
I forgot about this.
I know. You can really tell that they built these ones because obviously they're all made in the same fabric.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a Destiny's Child vibe where they're all made of the same fabric, but they're all wearing something different in it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Silhouettes are very Destiny's Child as well.
Yeah. I like Valerie's a lot, her dress with like the cutouts and the chains. And then I have this shot because she also has jewels just like going down her arm.
Oh my gosh. So funny. I still see that at raves though. Like people put the body jewels all over. I mean, not necessarily in that same pattern, but
yeah,
it's pretty common.
I don't know if I've seen like just like a straight line of jewels. I like it.
Yeah, that's true. I do too.
I think Y2K, because it was like, a new millennium, it was very spacey and futuristic was kind of a lot of the stuff that people were designing. And does that count as retrofuturism now since it's been 20 years?
True. I don't know, actually.
Because
it's interesting because I'm seeing this too and thinking of all like how big silver was at that time as well. Like gold was kind of out.
Yeah.
And we went straight to like silver and everything silver. So I think that had a lot to do with that futurism and kind of new space age type of look.
Yeah. I feel like gold was out for especially like I feel like a lot of people my age, I would have friends who'd be like, oh my God, I never wear gold, you know?
I definitely was one of those people until probably like a year ago when rose gold started coming back in. But like that's the only reason I was kind of like, okay, gold is like somewhat acceptable again.
I think like with sort of more bohemian stuff, gold came back in, and now the thing is like very tiny layered gold stuff. I feel like gold and silver are equally popular right now though.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, anyway, yeah, love it. Super cool. This is another one of them in all metallics. These are sort of like promo images.
I loved this look.
I mean, they look so good. They look so cool. They Josie wears a lot of these like clear, I'm gonna call them stripper shoes because that's
what they are.
It's like a clear platform with like a clear stiletto. But
it's beautiful.
It's because she's tiny. She's very petite lady, so gotta give her some height. And then this is like the classic image of them. It does show up in the movie as like their Rolling Stone cover. And then it's basically like the image of them that's on the poster for the movie. Look at Tara Reid's low rise pants.
And her like barely there top.
I know. It's really
so
like
funny.
Commando probably under there. I'm just saying.
I do remember that being a very big trend in the 90s too, that top that she wears, where it was kind of like almost like one handkerchief. It's like they took the handkerchief and made it into a shirt.
Yes.
And like that's what she wears a lot of.
Yes.
I do remember that from the movie.
I remember those too. I remember like, and they're coming back. Like, I mean, I feel like we're repeating ourselves, but it's all back. Like, it's just like a square or a diamond with one string around the back, and that's a top.
Yep. I've been seeing that a lot lately.
Yeah. As someone with a big chest, that's never really been part of my personal journy, tops like that.
I feel I don't have a big chest, but I have like big, wider shoulders. So it always made me look really like I had gigantic shoulders more than normal. And I was like, oh, this does not look good.
More power to you if that looks good on you. Like, great job. Oh, and then also, I have not mentioned yet their headbands, but obviously they're the Pussycats, and then they turn into Josie and the Pussycats, and they are always wearing some sort of ear, which I think is very cute. I like that they're like on studded headbands.
Yeah.
You would think that it would be cheesy looking, but I don't think it is.
Especially with that cheetah print. I think sometimes like older, kind of outdated with cheetah print. But I think they do it very tastefully.
Yeah. And then they have tails too. A lot of the time they have tails. You can see it in this picture.
I keep forgetting that.
It's pretty cute. What else? Let's see. My pictures are kind of in weird order, but I'm going to move to the party. So this is like a record label party that they throw for them. And this leopard gown is like chef's kiss, amazing. Like the stuff of my 7th grade dreams is this leopard gown.
Yes.
Here's a shot of the back of it.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah, and there's like a whole scene where Alan, the guy that she likes, has to like fix the chain for her, and he's like all sweaty and fumbly about it. It's so cute. But she also says, there's a line of dialogue where she's like, oh, they sent over this dress. I didn't pick it out. But she holds up her hands and she's like, but I cut it up and I made wristbands. So I think it's funny because like the front of it looks like maybe it's a sequin of some kind. And the front of it doesn't look like it was cut up by her in her hotel room.
Definitely not.
So she must be a good seamstress then. Here's another shot. This is of the chain. And then look at this like glitter tattoo thing she has.
Oh my gosh.
Blast from the past.
I love it.
It looks like a pressed flower almost, like with glitter on it and then just glued onto her. I like it.
But then it's got little like dots on the middle too.
Yeah, maybe those are little gems.
That look kind of raised. So it almost looks like they bejeweled the inside.
I think it's wonderful.
Some dedication.
And then at the party, we can see Mel and Val also sort of like in their pop star versions of like their regular clothes, which is like Val in a long dress and then Mel in a matching like little halter top and super low rise pants once again. And then she has a really cute headband on. I like this headband on Melody.
Yeah.
It's great. And then of course Josie's hair is so of the time. Like when I cut my hair short in like my junior year, I would totally do like the little flip with my hair straightener.
I think there were a couple times I literally showed pictures of Rachel Lee Cook to like my hairdresser and just said, do this.
That's
like,
amazing.
I just want her hair. Like
the other example
So funny.
I always think of is Reese Witherspoon in Sweet Home Alabama. She has that flippy
yes,
blonde
she does.
short.
That's another
cut.
great movie.
I love that one. Oh yeah, and I wrote down here that like compared to Josie, the other two don't look quite as like glamorous. Like they look great, but I feel like throughout the movie, the record company is trying to basically pit them against each other to make Josie into a solo artist. It's not really clear why. Like they clearly do really well as a threesome, but
Right.
there's a whole plot where they give Josie a CD of their single and she listens to it and it has a subliminal message track in it that's basically like, you should have a solo career. The other two are dead weight. So like, it's clear that like Josie in this equation, the three of them all together is like the one that stands out because this dress is just like so good.
Yeah. Well, I was noticing too, like even for the other two, they've almost like dropped the waistline like way low. So even like the emphasis of where is, I mean, I guess to a modern eye and looking at this now, it's definitely like two different silhouettes in comparison to the way that they've clearly like emphasized the small waist and like the wider hip for Josie.
That's a good point. Totally. So I'm going to move away from Josie for just a moment and go to Fiona, played by the incredible Parker Posey, who every time I see her in anything, I'm like, thank God Parker Posey is here. So with her character, from the Nylon article, Lisa said, I thought of her character as wearing things that were so artistic they almost couldn't be worn as street style, like you would see them in a museum or in a runway finale. Every single one of her outfits is like that. I was thinking of things that would have an element of avant-garde, high fashion, with equal parts whimsy and a sense of the ridiculous, which we can see
so true
here.
This is one of my favorite dresses of hers.
I cut. So the cuts that I did make were like a couple of her other outfits because all of her outfits are excellent. But this one I think is the best. It's like, to describe it, it's a pink dress of some kind. But the important part is she's wearing a choker that has all these feathers suspended from it, like via wire, I assume.
Yeah.
So it looks like she's just like surrounded by falling feathers. And there's a funny gag where she keeps whipping around and it makes like a little whoosh, whoosh, whoosh sound every time she whips around.
And whips people in the face.
Yeah, it's so funny.
It's so good.
Yeah. So she's basically like the head of the record label. So she's clearly very wealthy and can spend all of her money on the most current fashion. But she's also like in charge of the subliminal messaging department. So she's kind of an evil mastermind at the same time. And then this is her at the record party. This is
Forgot about all these looks. It's so good.
I know.
Every time.
It's a really fun, like, it looks like pleather sort of dress, and it's got all these suede polka dots, and then she has suede polka dots glued to her clavicle.
I'm gonna start doing that again.
They're on her back too.
Oh God,
it's great. It's just great. I
love it.
No nose for improvement. And then here's Alan Cumming in a like bronze snakeskin suit, which I enjoy. It's funny because suits don't really change that much, But then also like 20 years later, looking at this suit, the cut of it looks dated to me. So I'm like, clearly suits have changed. It's just like in small ways that we don't really think about.
They're so subtle that you almost don't notice until it's like way later and there's a completely different silhouette.
Totally. I think that what makes this one look a little bit dated is how high the break is, which is like, for those who don't know, the break is basically where the lapel ends and the buttons start. So it's like where the buttons start on your chest. And that moves up and down, you know, with the decades. And I think that right now I've seen some like on Oscars carpets and stuff, like double-breasted suits with really high breaks. But I haven't quite seen this high of a single-breasted break.
Yeah. Single-breasted usually isn't that high.
Yeah.
At least not nowadays. Yeah. Not contemporary.
It looks, so yeah, like you say like, oh, a suit is a suit. But then like you look at this and you're like, oh, okay, I can see that it looks period, basically. It's weird to think of 20 years ago as period, but it is.
I think also the shoulder pads, giving it that kind of stand out look, definitely helped that dated look as well.
I think the late 90s, early 2000s were a boxy time for suit jackets, for sure.
Yeah.
What else do I have? Let's see. Oh, I have Alexandra and Alexander, who are siblings.
Oh, yeah.
Alexander is their manager. And they're basically just comic relief and excellent comic relief. So the Alexandra, played by another of my favorite comedic actresses, Missy Pyle. I love her. I
haven't seen her in a lot of stuff recently, but yeah. So funny every time I've seen her.
I want her to have, you know how Catherine Hahn is having a moment because she was in WandaVision? I want
Which
Missy
I still
Pyle
have not seen yet, but I need to see it.
I haven't seen WandaVision. I know.
This is another one we should watch together, Sarah.
I know. And I've had a couple people ask if we're going to cover it, and I'm like, I got to watch it first.
Maybe that'll be our next mini episode.
Maybe. That would be a good candidate. We could at least watch like one or two episodes and cover like the pilot or something. Because I know that it's, well, I know that the show itself goes through a lot of time periods. That's why people like it, because it's, so.
That's definitely one we could do like multiple mini episodes on. One for every decade.
There's so much to watch. And honestly, right now I'm so busy with the Her Universe fashion show that when I come home, all I want to do is watch like a baking competition that I don't really have to pay attention to. And
I've been doing a lot of like going back and rewatching stuff that I've already seen because I was like, I don't have the capacity to pick up something new and process something new right now. Like I just need something in the background that either does not require a lot of extra thinking or is not going to require a lot of extra effort on my brain to process what's happening.
Yes, I'm right there with you. And I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that it's been a stressful year and we should take comfort wherever we can.
Absolutely.
I am watching a couple new HBO shows though, including The Nevers, which is a really good costume
I keep
show.
Hearing about that. I don't have HBO, so I need to find someone who can let me borrow or something. But I've heard really good things about that though.
It's really good. And I didn't know it was Joss Whedon. I got kind of mad that it was Joss Whedon because he's like, been in the news as like maybe not a great person. And I was like,
that made me really sad too, because there's a lot of his other shows that I actually really, really love. And then the fact that they're associated with him, I was just like, ugh. Like,
yeah.
That makes me sad.
Anyway, we digress. Okay.
Other story.
So yeah, this is the Alexander and Alexandra. I want to come up with like a combined name, but it doesn't work.
It's too close. The Alexes.
The Alexes. I like the production design too. I kept this. I was going to cut this photo like for, brevity and all the photos, but I love, this is the house that the Pussycats live in before they get famous. And it's just so cool inside that I needed to keep this photo. And then the Alexes kind of are representative of what is currently fashionable, which in the course of the movie changes several times because like the subliminal messaging will be like, orange is the new pink. You have to go buy orange clothes now. Throw away your pink clothes. So this is them in tones of pink at the beginning. And then like as the movie goes on, you see them in different monochrome outfits. And that's like whatever color is popular. And I have a couple of crowd shots at the end to kind of show that too, which is more of Lisa Evans's like monochrome thing coming in. It's very fun. Okay. So this is Alan and Josie on a date at the aquarium. And I got this because this is after she's a superstar, but she kind of dresses down for this date with him. So she's wearing, this is a shot for when they run away from the crowd, but she's wearing her stripper shoes again. But
those
she's
clear heels.
Yeah. And she's still so much shorter than him. She's so tiny. But she's kind of dressed down and like, it's almost like we can see that when she's with him, she feels like she can be herself and she doesn't have to be this superstar version of herself. She can be in jeans and a t-shirt again and still in like a heel, you know, because she is a celebrity now. And that's what she wears heels at the beginning too. They're just different. But she's with him. She's like a reminder of where she came from and he's like her constant. So that's why I wanted to talk about this outfit.
I'm trying to figure out what's on his shirt because I can't tell if it's in another language.
It says old Fords never die, maybe?
Okay. Because, like, for some reason, I couldn't see, like, the top of the F for Ford. So it almost looked like Arabic, like, alphabet for a second. And I was like, what is that language?
It's like a hot rod. So maybe it's a Ford. Yeah. I'm trying to... Yeah. It definitely
maybe
says
if I
never die.
stood a little further back.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Anyway, yeah. So back to Josie. So this is in her like mega biatch mode when she's you can see she has the headphones on. She's listening to Subliminal Track. Oh, and then also I like this shot because you can see on the windows. This is her hotel suite and it says Revlon across the windows.
So much advertising.
Placement. And then next to her is like a whole bowl of candy and snacks. It's all brands all the time. Yeah. One of my favorite scenes is when Tara Reid she's like in the shower singing and it's like a McDonald's shower and her little body sponge that she's using is French fries.
Oh gosh. Oh, I think I do remember that.
So funny.
So funny.
So this is like Josie's final form almost as a pop star. It's a suit, a leopard print suit, and I have a full body shot right here.
It just fits her so beautifully.
It does. You can tell that they made this. And she's got her clear shoes on again. She loves those clear shoes. What else did I write about this?
She still looks so small here, though.
I know, she's little.
Rachel's so tiny.
Oh, I wrote it's a Pokemon evolution of her previous leopard print outfits. I don't know anything about Pokemon, so I hope I used that correctly. Oh, and I wrote...
I'd say so.
I wrote, she is a product now, so she is the thing that the record company has created to sell. So she's like, this is what they want to sell. This is what they want her to be. Not necessarily what she wants herself to be.
Right.
So let's move to the last sort of scene. This is like before the big concert where they were going to like really brainwash people, I guess. And I love this outfit. I have considered making this outfit for myself and I still might do that.
I think you totally should.
My pants might be a little more high-waisted.
Not quite so low-waisted.
Because I don't have Rachel Lee Cook's abs. But I love it. It's like this blue leopard. It looks see-through, kind of. But the pants probably have like a nude lining in them, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And then it's like a duster made of the same fabric with a lovely fur collar thing.
I love that it's like black around her neck and then it goes into the blue.
Yeah. It looks so good against her like orangey red hair too. I think it's really smart and really cool. And even though this is not an outfit she picked for herself, they're like forcing her at this point to go to the concert. She looks great in it anyway.
Yeah.
So this is her facing off against Fiona, Parker Pose's character. There's a lot happening in this
picture. This is why we can't limit, guys.
I know. You can see, actually, I love how in the background of this, you can see that Alex is tied up and they're in leopard print because Josie has popularized leopard print. Now it's the thing that's in.
Right. Right.
And then Fiona's dress is so cool. It's basically like a gown made of Mega Records logos. You could see
okay. That's what
here.
it is.
It's almost like a
yes.
punk, like Vivienne Westwood kind of thing, because they're like very loosely stitched together, and they look like patches. So it looks like Vivienne Westwood to me.
Yeah.
And then she also has a little glitter tattoo right here of the logo. I want glitter tattoos now.
Oh, man.
So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. It's great.
I love it.
I have 2 more pictures, and they're just of like extras showing us the monochrome of like, this is the color that's in. So this is what everybody's wearing. And then this is at the aquarium when everyone is in blue. And then this is from the record store. Everybody's in pink. So yeah. And then I have just a couple more quotes from the Nylon article that I liked. Lisa said, I found a unique opportunity to raise the bar of what comedic fashion might be conceived as. Like, comedy equals funny, costumes should be funny, acting should be funny. But what I realized was creating more drama and fashion reality in the costumes sometimes balanced out the comedy in a really good way. So I think that's interesting because it's like, not all contemporary movies can support the crazy fashion like this, you know, like this Mega Records dress, like something like this would be totally wackadoo in like a more straightforward, not satirical or hyper reality sort of movie. But like when everybody is crazy, then the fashion can also be crazy.
Yeah, it's very true. It's nice when there's the capability to be able to do that.
Oh, yeah. This is another quote that kind of just reinforces that. She said, sometimes as a costume designer, you're really focusing on character, and fashion is too much for a character. But when it came to the heightened world of Josie and the Pussycats, this was one of the rare opportunities where fashion could really be infused in the characters in a profound way. So that's all I have. Oh, I feel like I went long.
All I have.
I feel like I went long.
It's okay.
That's Josie and the Pussycats. I love it. It's the best movie ever. The end.
Woohoo! It's okay. I'm pretty sure mine will be fairly short.
It's okay if it isn't.
Sort of short, but not really short. Okay, I will get us started on mine.
I'm so excited about yours too. I haven't seen this movie in forever. I used to watch it all the time.
That's how I feel. It was funny because it's been so long since I watched it, and then I rewatched it again, and I was like, still just as hilarious as the first time I watched it. Like, I was still laughing out loud on multiple occasions.
It's so good. It's one of my faves.
And let me actually take out my notes first. So my notes are going to be fairly short on this today because for some reason, even though this movie is fairly new, I could find no interviews or notes with the costume designer on the first movie. All of his interviews are relating to like the second and third one because obviously he had more budget. He was like really going a very specific direction. And I kind of feel like with this movie, there was a lot more sort of, I mean, obviously he put thought into the characters, but I think he was still kind of figuring out who they were because you don't really get as much of the development I don't want to say until second and third movies, but he's done so much more in terms of like high fashion with the second and third, which we're not even talking about today. So my notes are very minimal.
They go to more places in the second and third movies too. It's like they go to Europe and stuff. So it's like
it's crazy. So yeah, and he definitely like pushed and heightened the fashion, very similar to Josie and the Pussycats, I think, in the second and third. But let me give you some little facts about the movie. I am covering Pitch Perfect, of course. So fun. And I love mashups. Like I love when I hear good mashups, and this was just the perfect movie for that. So that's why we decided to talk about these today. So the director, of course, is Jason Moore. And he doesn't have a huge resume, but he did Sisters with Tina Fey and I just forgot her name. The other one that she's always in movies with.
Amy Poehler.
Yes, Amy Poehler.
Yeah.
Thank you. I was like, she's always in movies with her. So he directed Sisters. And then prior to that, most of his resume is filled with random episodes directing One Tree Hill or Everwood. So a lot of like kind of teen movies and sort of that college or like high school to college age group.
Yeah.
So that might have helped him with this particular like age group that they're focusing on, I guess. But yes, definitely a much more heightened kind of almost over exaggerated world with Pitch Perfect. And then our costume designer was Salvador Perez, who is actually the president of the Costume Designers Guild.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, this doesn't relate to this movie in particular, but he did come in with a good deal of costume manufacturing background. And so that's how he ended up on a lot of these shows, because he was working in a lot of fashion workrooms, because that's where he started. So he actually, I can't remember where it said he went to fashion school, but it was somewhere in Cali. And then, of course, he's done Never Have I Ever. He did a lot of the costumes for the Mindy Project. He's now done all 3 of the Pitch Perfect movies. He's done Zack and Miri Make a Porno. He also did all of Veronica Mars, which is great.
I had no idea.
I know, right? I was looking at that and I was like, oh, Sarah will love this news.
I am a Veronica Mars stan. It's true.
And you can tell that a lot of his work, he's definitely very fashion forward thinking. And because, I could be making this assumption because he is of, I want to say Spanish background or possibly Hispanic background. I'm just assuming from his last name, but because of that culture, I think there's a lot of color that he uses in his work, and specifically in this movie. So again, a lot of this I was making speculations on just because there wasn't a lot of interviews specifically about this movie. But you can see a lot of that kind of cultural color palette that shows up in a lot of the characters.
He and Mindy Kaling are like have a real working relationship. Like I don't know how they met, but he dresses her for everything. He like anytime she's on a carpet, she's wearing a gown. There
is an interview about that because I think they met on the Mindy Project, and then because she kind of designs a lot of her own like fashion trends and she wants it to be very fashion forward, so she gave him a lot of flexibility to be able to do that, and then it turned into designing stuff for her for the red carpet because of that. So yes, they have a very, very close relationship because of that previous work. So it's all about networking.
It really is.
I didn't find anything specifically about this movie, but there was a quote he said about the second movie that I thought was interesting because it did reference this first movie. And it mentioned that the Barden Bellas, who is the a cappella group that Anna Kendrick becomes a part of in this first movie. If you haven't seen this movie, he talks about them having kind of very sweet collegiate styles, which I thought was kind of interesting. The other thing that I wanted to talk about with this movie, and it was interesting that you brought up with Josie and the Pussycats that they use so many brand names without really getting the funding from the companies, is that nowadays with filmmaking, you're not allowed to use those brands unless they have given you permission, because it's kind of like breaking copyright if you're just representing the artwork on a film, especially something that's this big where you potentially have the money to pay them in order to use their brand. So you can tell that with this particular movie, you don't really see a lot of brands, except for a few T-shirts have some logos that look like they were like personally designed by Salvador. Because, for example, the Troublemakers, who is the male a cappella group, that's kind of that's the counterpart to the Barden Bellas. They actually, in the first scene where we meet them, like at least 3 of them have a giant logo that just says Troublemakers on it, on their T-shirt. So clearly it's something that was created for this movie as opposed to using another brand. So of course that might have been just rules that changed over time. I don't know if that was in place, of course, when Josie was being made, but like nowadays it's like very, very hush hush if you use a brand name and aren't technically allowed to represent them.
That's so interesting.
Yeah, so you'll see a lot of like really solid tees and like kind of like stripes are fine. You'll see a lot of kind of non-committal patterns and prints. And even, and I'll talk about this in a little bit, but some of the characters have very specific prints. And I don't know, I mean, those things might have been like a fashion forward thing and maybe he had some kind of connection to be able to get or use that artwork. But most of the characters have pretty like nondescript and like not very they don't tell you a lot about the character, if that makes any sense. They're kind of more solid and sort of everyday, like things that we would buy at like a Target, without the Target brand.
Off the rack kind of stuff.
Yes. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to our costumes. The first thing I did want to talk about was his representation of Asian characters in this movie. And I'm not gonna lie, I wasn't super happy with the way that he represented Asians, and maybe that's just because I'm coming from an Asian perspective.
That's important, though.
It's interesting because I actually really love how he costumed the Japanese beatboxer character in the group. Yeah. Mm-hmm. She's got some really fun and kind of unusual and unique sort of fashion forward looks. And because she's one of the main characters, I get it. I get why he put a little bit more, I don't want to say effort into that, but with like, I wanted to start with the roommate, because every time we see her, and again, I had a dilemma about whether or not this was a good or bad thing, but he always has her in these like button-up shirts, and it is a very like preppy look, but then like all of her friends are also in very similar, like they're always in some sort of button-up shirt or like a very J. Crew look. Mm-hmm. And I get that he kind of groups all of them with Kimmy Jin as like her posse, but it felt a little offensive that he was dressing every single one of them kind of the same. And it was always like that model minority look, right? Where it was that kind of like, I have to dress as if I'm making straight A's and, completely like, I mean, yes, that is true of some of us, but it felt a little bit like it was too stereotyped.
Right.
And this movie has a lot of stereotypes that they make fun of. So, maybe it was appropriate at this time. But I guess now with everything happening in culture, it just felt very outdated. And I don't know that I appreciated it that much. Also, the fact that he puts all of them in a lot of like very bland, like khakis, whites, and like really pale blues. I mean, you can see her friend here is wearing like an olive color, I guess, but for the most part, every other look that they have is like either really, really disappearing khaki or white, or really, really disappearing gray, which I will show you in the next shot.
Not a lot of personality to be had in these costumes.
So like this is like a very, very brief scene of them, but it's her and her four friends. And like I was a little confused because they're supposed to be playing a video game, but then two of them are just wearing what looks like regular sunglasses and then on their phones instead of like an actual game player. And she's the only one with like also sunglasses, but like slightly different. Like nothing is connected. So like as someone who's married to a gamer, this doesn't look correct at all. But again, not even the point that I'm trying to make. The fact that they're all like literally in the same color and almost essentially the same exact silhouette, and like Kimmy Jin is in the middle, but again, she's got like a button-up kind of more formal shirt. So it just felt a little weird to me that she's like this freshman who's come to college, and like, yes, she's got her Korean community, but it felt weird that he almost dressed them as if they were like the elite Asian group.
Very homogenous, like they're all the same person.
Right, exactly. Mm-hmm. So anyways, that was my one like beef with this this beginning part.
A very legitimate beef.
So yes. Okay, moving on. So, the other look that I was not a huge fan of, and I love these colors on Rebel Wilson, and it's just a funny, she's a funny character. She's got a lot of like, kind of, you're not sure if she puts things together right, because she makes this whole funny joke about her hairstyle too, which is also very strange to me in the beginning. Mm-hmm. But then she jokes about how it's like this Orthodox Jew hairstyle. So, anyways, that whole thing, I was kind of like, oh, right, that's where that comes from. So that clearly is part of that joke. But my big issue with this outfit is that she's like on a college campus. It's kind of their first day, and they're like visiting like the campus fair. Mm-hmm. But this is such a weird outfit for her to be walking around in. Like she's in these high heels. And also when she stands up, like you can't really see it in this picture, but that shirt actually is not very flattering on her. And I don't know if that's just, because I get it as a person who's much smaller, I'm sometimes not used to thinking about a bigger body size because that's just not what I'm used to dressing. Like it's easiest to dress myself if I see someone else who's my size. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to figure out if it was just like, did he purposely try to dress her not in a size that fit her or that was flattering? Or was this just because he didn't understand how to dress that body size or body type?
I think it's probably the second one.
Yeah.
I've not heard specifically about Rebel Wilson, but I know that on the show Shrill, which stars Adie Bryant, they had to make a lot of her wardrobe, especially in the first season, because like plus size clothes are so limited. Like, they really wanted her to be trendy and cute, and their selection was just really bad. So I think a lot of costume designers do not know what to do with bigger bodies. Like,
it's true. Very
unfortunately.
True. Yeah, and you can kind of see that through a lot of her looks. So it was like really unfortunate. And granted, this is, one of her bigger breakout films in the beginning of her career, I think, before she got like really big with a lot of other stuff. But I kind of just felt like this was a really unfortunate sort of first impression. And also this black pencil skirt doesn't do her any favors.
It looks business casual.
Right. Especially with this top. It was just like a lot of it. I was kind of like, this was kind of a big miss. Like, I feel like we could have really told the audience a lot more about who she was
right.
in this first moment. Because, I mean, she does tell us in what she says in the dialogue in this first scene. But, like, it kind of feels like her outfit doesn't match her dialogue and the way she would have dressed.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's from like Tanzania and she's kind of this crazy, kooky personality and she knows that about herself. So like, why would you dress like this?
Right.
If you're so comfortable with your body, well, so she says, right? So, yeah, I don't know. I guess this was just one of the, I don't think as successful looks in the movie.
Yeah.
Okay, but moving on. So I did want to go kind of by character as opposed to, in order through the movie, just because it's a little easier to kind of track the characters in this. I put this photo up because, speaking of talking about tattoos for Josie and the Pussycats, you don't really ever see this tattoo in any other scene except for this, but this is when she first comes to campus. And then this is kind of when they find her and discover that she can sing, right? So they're trying to recruit her for their a cappella group. But I just thought this was interesting that she's got, she kind of has this tough exterior that she keeps giving off. And one of the successful things that I think Salvador did very well is that he did place her in very, very specific monochrome colors for most of the movie. So she doesn't really adopt too much color, or it's not as visible. It's mostly grays and kind of blacks, because she's supposed to be sort of this goth personality. And I just love that she's got this kind of tattoo where it's sort of hidden, but it's also still very feminine. Again, kind of indicating that she's sort of put up this facade that she's this tough character, even though they're like flowers on her tattoo. So
yeah.
I put that in there just to kind of go along with, again, her first look, which is this look here. And again, it's that kind of draped, it's like a draped sweater vest almost. And she's got like black skinny jeans and like black combat boots. And the only color she's wearing is this really deep dark red, which also comes back later on. And also, I mean, even with the makeup, they've been very clear about making her look kind of alternative and goth.
I wouldn't say goth. I would just say she looks like she's trying not to fit in. She's trying to be different and alternative. And like her whole vibe is that she doesn't want to be there, right? So like she's communicating that.
Right. Or not communicating, I should say.
Yeah.
Yes. She's on her headphones quite a lot.
Yeah.
So then as we go through the movie, and again, just to kind of show the progression of how Salvador starts introducing colors, and it's kind of not shown well in this picture, but the stripe is actually maroon. So she actually has like a maroon and mustard color that she starts introducing as she's starting to get to know her troublemaker counterpart, Skylar Aston. So Becca is her name and then Jesse is his name. But of course, they are both on opposite a cappella groups. So he's in the boys group, she's in the girls group, but they become friends just because he's kind of the first weirdo that she sort of greets in the taxi at the very beginning. So This image, I just wanted to kind of showcase that, like, even though she's wearing a lot of the same colors and it's still a very deep and kind of dark color, that she's starting to introduce colors as she's starting to open up a little bit more. And then at the same time, I also wanted to showcase that one thing Salvador did with Skylar's character is that he is in mostly blues, other than when he's singing with the Treblemakers, which the Treblemakers, their color is kind of the maroon, sort of maroon red.
Yeah.
Or like a deep red. So the only time he's ever in that is when he's singing with them. But otherwise, his color palette throughout the entire movie is a lot of like different varying shades of like navy blue and kind of a deep slate blue. And he's always wearing some kind of either dark blue jeans or black jeans. Mm-hmm. So his consistent character stays pretty much the same throughout. Did not mean to zoom in on that. Okay. So then furthermore, we keep progressing. She goes into yet another maroon. And this is when she finally decides to watch Breakfast at Tiffany's during spring break.
Breakfast Club, right?
I mean, sorry, Breakfast Club.
I don't want people to
not
yell
Breakfast at Tiffany's.
Yeah.
Yes, Breakfast Club. And I thought this was interesting because it's still in her color palette, but like we're starting to see some of that black and gray kind of disappear. She's wearing a lot more color and only the color. Mm-hmm. And again, it's kind of it's sort of the opposite. Like as she's going more red, Skylar or Josie kind of goes more blue. And then at the very end, when they perform, the Bardem Bellas are all in a kind of a deep, like almost navy blue. And then all of the Treblemakers are in like that that like deep red.
Right.
So it's kind of an interesting like color crossover throughout the movie, which I don't know if that was intentional or not, but it was just something I noticed. Mm-hmm. And then this is her final outfit when she is like when they finally, the acapellas get kicked out of regionals, but then because they find out one of the performers had a high schooler performing, so then they're back in for finals. Yeah. So this is after she's been kicked out, and she's kind of learning her life lessons of how to make friends and how to keep them. But this is kind of where you're starting to see a little bit more of the color. She's not really wearing just gray anymore. She's starting to introduce a little bit of green in her olive jacket, and then she's still got that red top. While still keeping the same kind of black skinny jeans and combat boots.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, you can't see it in this picture, but the boots actually have a flip over that's red on the inside.
Oh, cute.
So again, it was kind of a nice little tie-in of color, just introducing more color to her palette. Mm-hmm. Okay. So I totally lied. He's totally not in blue all the time. This is when it's towards the end as well for him. And I did want to bring this up because he starts going more towards brown and going a little closer to the red color that he ends up in with the Treblemakers. But I also just chose this because Skylar Astin just looks really good in this jacket.
He's pretty handsome.
Yes, very handsome. And like I think Salvador did a really good job of nicely layering all the things while still giving him a very kind of macho look.
Yeah, totally.
That's all I had to say about that. And then I wanted to show some quick images of Benji. Because he's just so nerdy. And like, I didn't pull too many. I got rid of a lot of looks, but I did love this t-shirt that is actually a painted on tie. So it's literally just a t-shirt that he clearly like put a tie onto. And that just says so much about his character because he really is like the classic nerd. So the fact that he doesn't even wear a button-up shirt, he just paints on a tie instead for his audition. So this was his audition shirt. Oh, man. And then he's actually in quite a lot of other stripes as well. I wanted to post this first image because this is one of the examples where you do see more of that specific graphic. And again, because he's our leading man, of course, this would make sense that he would have the one graphic on his t-shirt, but everyone else is kind of in these like nondescript stripes. You can't see it in this picture, but one big difference that Salvador did to change the silhouette between the two guys is that Benji wears his shirt like way tucked into his very high-waisted pants in this scene, whereas all the other guys are clearly just, wearing their t-shirts like a normal guy would, where it's just out and like, don't bother tucking it in.
Yeah.
But yes, it's just so cute. Benji's one of my favorite characters.
Benji's adorable.
Okay, I wanted to pull this up because, again, just some other examples of kind of the more nondescript, like non-brand ways of Salvador being able to kind of color code the different characters. This is our audition character. He's kind of the one that's announcing the auditions. And again, very, very like nondescript, very vague. This looks like it could have been bought from Target. But he's also kind of the only one in this sort of purple at the very beginning. So just thought that was interesting.
That's McLovin.
Yes, I know. Yet another Benji picture. I just, oh my God. Again,
is like an otter?
He's got an otter on his sweater.
That's so cute. I want that.
But yes, so again, I think like it almost feels kind of like Salvador had the most fun with Benji's character just because there's so many ways to just be creative and make him look nerdy. So I just really loved this. This is when he's cheering the guys for regionals because he hasn't gotten in, but he still wants to support them, because he's their biggest fan. So
Benji.
So cute.
He wears a lot more
and then
color,
he's also got
too.
like the shirt underneath. So it's like kind of preppy, but also nerdy because you're kind of like, why is he wearing a sweater with an otter on it? So then moving on to the other Asian character that he dressed. And she is probably one of my favorite characters that he dressed in this movie just because she's got such crazy stuff. It feels very Emilio Pucci is kind of what it reminds me of. It's that very, very bright colors and a lot of like really fun prints. But also you can tell he's taken a lot of Japanese sensibility and making her look very, very much like the kind of, I forget what the name of the type of dress is, but I know there's Mori Girl, which is basically like they dress like woodland girls.
Oh,
but they look very young. It's like a very baby doll kind of silhouette. But I feel like he uses a lot of that little girl aspect in her costumes. She's got, like the giant bows and the headbands, and she's always like fixing her perfect bangs. And she has pigtails a lot of times as well. So a lot of her looks seem very inspired by kind of like, I want to say 70s, maybe a little 60s too. But again, the Emilio Pucci look of the very like loud prints mixed with the kind of almost Mary Quant as well. The very like 70s like turtlenecks and stuff.
Yeah, and the long straight hair makes me think like 60s, 70s too.
Yes, very much so. And then some of her other looks. So this is when she finds out that they got back into finals. I just think this is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. Like she's wearing a striped. It is. Okay. So it looks like, I can't really tell because this is, again, such a fast shot and she never wears it again.
Yeah.
But it almost looks like it's like denim on the side. And then it's got these kind of crazy like yarn. It's got a crazy yarn trim. And then I got hopefully, yes, a kind of interesting shot of the back.
Wow.
So again, it looks very 70s in terms of the vest silhouette.
Yeah.
But it's just, it's such an interesting, weird pairing of these two things. So I just thought that was really interesting. So nothing much to say about it. Just
fun texture.
It's an interesting kind of funky look. And then again, another look of hers. She's got a lot of the florals. This looks a little more normal for her, but even then you've got the really fun colors and she's probably a little bit more kind of bright in terms of her stripes and then kind of pairing it with like mismatched pattern and prints. So I thought that was interesting. So this is right before she falls into the throw up.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, it's real bad.
Oh.
So going back a little bit, this is kind of a back shot of Anna Kendrick's first look. So you can kind of see that it's almost like belted in with that kind of draped vest that she's got. But then in comparison to our Brittany Snow character, who's in this like really bright blue. So speaking of blue going really well with that kind of orange hair, I thought they did a really nice job of pairing that as well. Yeah. And she's got a slightly more unusual dress shape in comparison to everyone else. It looks a little bit more like this was very particular. Either it was made for her or he like shopped at a high-end boutique where this isn't like on the streets.
Yeah.
Because even the pleating that's up on the top of her yoke, which is sort of that top portion of the dress, is very specific. And then she does wear this color a few times in the movie, but I love that her first introduction to Anna Kendrick's character, Becca, is her in this like kind of Barbie pink, because that's very much her character in the beginning. I mean, but like uptight Barbie, if that makes any sense.
Yes, perfect. Like,
yes,
almost
so like
pageant-y.
everything is very in place, and it's like kind of the brightest thing that you see on screen. So I thought that was a really interesting way of kind of focusing in on her character, and also kind of talking about how uptight she is, because everything has its place, and it's still a very like formal kind of look.
Fussy.
Yes.
Peter Pan collars always say fussy to me.
Mm-hmm. And then the last, well, I don't know if these are the last ones, but I did want to pull a couple of shots of each of the other groups just to kind of show how Salvador has sort of separated all of them.
Yeah.
So this is the BU Harmonics. So they only sing Madonna songs. Which it's interesting to me because they're all in such a preppy look, but in such vibrant colors, which I think is a great look for an a cappella group. But it seems weird that they're the group that sings Madonna songs, because
Madonna's not preppy.
This does not scream Madonna to me at all. And so I wonder what his thought process was for this, I guess. I'm just curious.
I wonder.
And then moving on. So these are the high notes. And very clearly, like, I feel like this was really successful. I think he definitely gives off that, like, I mean, not to stereotype, but like this particular like hoodie,
stoner hoodie,
it just screams stoner. Yeah. And even her vest here, it's like, it's very kind of hippie 70s.
Yeah.
It makes me think a little Woodstock. And even the way that he's got like the striped V-neck and like the kid with the afro and like the tie-dye. So a lot of that, I think he very meticulously picked out these patterns and shirts and pieces very well. Mm-hmm. So this, I think, was definitely successful.
Tells us who they are.
Troublemakers, yeah, exactly. And then the Troublemakers, you can see here, it's a lot of vibrant colors, but really, really like a lot of stripes, a ton of plaids. He uses that over and over again for the Troublemakers. And they're always in some kind of, or there's some inclusion of either mustard yellow or that kind of deep red, maroon red. Yeah. So it's very Gryffindor colors.
Yeah.
And they, like I said, the kind of rust or deep red is something that is their common color throughout all of their performances. So in regionals as well as finals, and I'll go over that in a second. They're always wearing some sort of outerwear that's in the maroon color. But I thought this was really, it was a really nice contrast to show you, like, in comparison to the vibrant colors of, like, the BU Harmonics, they've got a lot more pattern. And then this is the image that I was talking about where they clearly made up this graphic, which it says Troublemakers. And I think there's only, like, 2 of them that have some kind of other graphic on their T-shirt. Mm-hmm. So for whatever reason, they're wearing something else, but most of them look like, besides Bumper, who's the kind of lead a cappella leader.
I forgot his name's Bumper.
But everyone else, everyone else is wearing that Troublemaker logo. Okay. So I wanted to pull a couple images of the Bard and Bellas in their performances versus the Troublemakers in their performances, just to kind of show you some of that contrast. And again, to kind of indicate that difference of color between like the blue versus like the reds that the Troublemakers are associated with. And this is a kind of an old picture of the Bard and Bellas. And it's so interesting to me because these are like, their shirts are worn so much lower. It's clearly very much about the sex appeal of these women, even though they also do sing well. But there's definitely a standard of what they look like and what they're selling, if that makes any sense. Versus when we see the newer Bard and Bellas, I mean, they still have that kind of low shirt, but you can see on each of them, it kind of hits at different levels. Yeah. And not all of them have it opened all the way down. This shot happens to show a lot of them down, but even when we first see Anna Kendrick putting on this uniform, her shirt is actually a lot more closed. So I thought that was kind of interesting that, like, obviously we're representing very different body shapes as well. It's not so much about selling like what the first version of the Bard and Bellas was selling.
Well,
and it's clearly not about that.
Yeah, it's almost like they dropped their standards, like because they couldn't really recruit the way they usually did. So like it's how like the Rockettes, like you have to be a certain height and everybody's the exact same body type. It's almost like they were like that, but now they can't be choosy, so they just take whoever they can get. So now it's actually more diverse.
Agreed. And it's interesting too because there was an interview with Anna Kendrick talking about how the producers kept saying like, "Oh, we need your costumes to be like tighter and sexier and fit better." And she was kind of like, "Okay, but people that are coming to see this movie are not looking for that. Like, they're here to see women who are strong and are different and are representing different body types and are not just there to be sexy. Like." They're strong because they sing well and they have talent and they can do all these other things. And it's not about how they look, that kind of thing. So I just thought that was really interesting that she said that and awesome that she like fought for that.
Yes.
But it did make me wonder, like, who came up with that uniform choice or like who asked for that shirt to be unbuttoned so low, that kind of thing. So how much of that was Salvador's choice versus the producers pushing for that.
It's interesting because I would say that the main audience for these movies is probably women, young women. So asking for the clothes to be tighter, like especially if it's coming from a male perspective, that's like making it for the male gaze. But like you need to, it's like they didn't know who their audience actually was because like that's not what the female gaze wants, like usually
absolutely.
It's not about like sexy. It's about like seeing a wide representation of different types of women being funny and being talented and stuff.
And it's funny too, because in the movie itself, I mean, the people that are like announcing, that are kind of overseeing all these regionals, the announcers, like there's so many comments between the two of them about how the male announcer is being like totally misogynist and he's like making all these stupid comments that are clearly sexist or whatever. So like they do poke fun at it, which I think is so funny because like in most cases, I feel like a lot of people end up just ignoring that. But like really, it's a very satirical comment on what's actually happening potentially. I mean, behind the scenes, but also, in real life. So I just thought it was funny. There's a lot of comments on it, and it's interesting hearing the behind the scenes like opinions about it and kind of seeing what sort of eventually happened in their costumes.
And this one was directed by a man, but it was written by Kay Cannon, I believe, who was a writer on 30 Rock, and then produced by Elizabeth Banks, who I think directed the sequels.
Yes.
So it's interesting that like this one has a man at the helm, but like the other ones do not.
Right. And, you can kind of see some of the shift in the second and third one, too, once Elizabeth took over. But Elizabeth does play the female announcer who keeps calling out the male announcer for all of his misogyny. Yep. So, interestingly enough.
Very interesting.
Okay, moving on. So, this is the troublemakers at regionals. So again, this is not right at the finals. So you can see like he started off with kind of a more casual look for them, but they still have the troublemaker logo on all of these jackets. Yeah. So I can only imagine all the copies that he had to make of this. It looks like it was an embroidered patch that they probably made up. But I love that they all kind of have, our two main leads that kind of lead the group have the same undershirt in the same color, but then everyone else has that same kind of jacket and sort of silhouette too. Like all of them have that kind of either V-neck or crew neck. There's one guy who has the polo. Yeah. But generally speaking, he's kind of created a uniform look for all of them. And then I love that this girl in the front just has
that's wild.
She's like a hot fan for them.
She's in it.
It's just funny.
She's here to support.
Yes. So we start off with Bumper leading them into Don't Stop the Music. That's their first number in their kind of like local competition before they go into regionals and finals. But you can see here, this is the jacket standard that they use for their bigger competitions. And sorry, this was regionals from the year before. They only really wear this more tailored blazer in the same color of maroon for the final performances. And then you can kind of see it's almost like he's created this hierarchy of what is deemed each level. You know, what kind of uniform do you wear for each level? So this is the final level, and then the hoodie is sort of the regional level. And then I wanted to also show, again, not a huge difference, but this is the final scene where Skylar Astin and Benji are in their final blazers. So it's the same blazer as we see in the first one, but we're a little bit more done up here. I think in the previous one, Bumper's wearing more of like a casual shirt underneath, whereas here they're really wearing like a button-up shirt and like the tie. It also has to do with the songs they chose, because it's interesting because Benji's in it now. They choose, you know, I've Got the Magic in Me, because he's supposed to be a closet magician, but not really closet. So it's a very appropriate kind of end song once they include him.
Yeah.
But I just thought it was kind of interesting to see that progression of the type of clothing they wear. And then going back, okay, so our two announcers, Elizabeth Banks, and I can't remember his name. But
He's great.
I just thought
I never remember his name either.
He's in a lot of stuff. I just can never remember his name. But this is their finals outfits, which I think is just so funny because it's so incredibly formal. It's almost like a black tie event.
Yeah.
Even though it's a singing a cappella competition.
And they're not like clearly on camera either. It's just announcing. So like, who's going to see them?
Right. Exactly. Like no one will ever see them. All they hear is their voices.
Maybe they're taking
and
really
actually
good pics.
Could be. But like it's funny because they're also not even the people that are announcing the actual competition. Because there's a guy on the set who's like the MC. Yeah. So he's like on stage announcing all the groups. So they're literally like behind the
commentators.
Right. Exactly. So it's almost like they're treating this like a spectator sport,
That's
which
funny.
I think is funny. But they're in black and white tie.
Gotta keep it formal.
But yeah, so this is them getting ready and like warming their voices up as if they're part of this, even though they're not actually singing. So I just thought this was a really great shot, and I just wanted to include it because it was very fun. And then the final last two looks is the Bard and Bellas, and you can see they've obviously changed out their kind of flight attendant uniform from before, and they're still wearing all the same colors, but it's almost like he's allowed them to like include other pieces in the same color palette, but now he's given them each their own personality.
Yeah.
So like, you know, for our Japanese character Lily, she's got kind of more like leggings and sort of, because she's our beatboxer, so it looks like he kind of dressed her more streetwear. We've got Rebel Wilson in sort of more like exercise gear, which again, I still don't think he was very successful at dressing her body type, which is very unfortunate. And she's also the only one kind of in more of a black.
Yeah.
So yes, anyways, I will not go on and on about how I don't think Rebel Wilson's costumes were.
They don't do her justice.
Well done here.
She's great. She deserves better.
Yeah. And, but yes, anyways, so then like we see kind of, I can never remember her name either, but our other lead lady.
The actress's name is Anna Camp. I don't know what her character's name is, but her name's
Anna Camp. Yeah. Oh, Aubrey. That's her name. But she's also got a lot more satiric colors normally, so it's interesting here that she's got kind of the darker blue, and then she's gone back to a pretty neutral black cami.
Yeah.
And then the big thing here is with Anna Kendrick, Becca's character goes into that more vibrant blue that we see a lot of on Jesse's character. So Skylar Astin's, the male character, he wears a lot of this kind of color. So I love that last scene, she's actually kind of gone back into his color, especially when she's also singing the finale song from
It's like her olive branch to him, right? Because they're like, they had fought or whatever, and it's...
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, it's like she's like, hey, I'm actually, here I am. Let's date.
Yes. Yeah. So I love that Salvador put her back in the color that he's kind of been seen in throughout the entire movie. And that's really all I had to say about that. This is just another shot of her in the blue.
I like those pants with the buttons. They're cute.
I do. And she actually there's another scene at the very beginning where they have their initiation party, and she's wearing a military coat that's kind of got those same sort of double rows of buttons. So again, I don't know if he did that on purpose, but I just thought that was kind of an interesting little nod.
Cute little motif.
Yeah, just a repeated motif. And it's only really repeated there in addition to here. So I think Becca's costumes were probably the most successful overall. And and Lily, the little Japanese girl. I think those two are probably my favorite in this movie.
Agreed.
Everyone else, it's interesting because this movie blew up so much, and like the costumes that he's got in Pitch Perfect 2 and 3 are so, it's like 10 steps above this.
Yeah.
Because he probably had more budget to
way
do
more
stuff with it. Clearly with this, it looks like he tried to be as creative as possible in terms of the color palette, but because he couldn't really scream too many brands, he had to be very like thrifty with what he put on people while still trying to keep it vague enough not to like scream a brand.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I can see the challenge of that. I think that was still done very well. Like you can still kind of figure out which character is who. But yes, I think Rebel Wilson, he could have done a lot more with her. And I think he did end up adjusting things in second and third movie. But for this movie, unfortunately, it felt a little bit like this was sort of a guessing game with her.
Yeah.
a little bit more.
It was just like, this'll work, I guess. Like,
yeah.
Good enough, which is
exactly
sad. She deserves better than that.
So true. And I can't remember. There was another movie I was watching. It's the one with her and Anne Hathaway. And it's based on, do you know what I'm talking about?
Do I know what you're talking about? What is it based on?
The Hustler. I think that's what it's called. Or The Hustle.
Are they? I have not seen this, but I think I know what you're talking about.
Yes, but her costumes in that movie are phenomenal. That is another one we have to talk about at some point.
Good.
But after seeing her in that, it's kind of like coming back to this and being like, oh, it really could have fit her better. But yes, so anyways, that is my coverage of Pitch Perfect.
Yay!
Hopefully you all enjoyed that. It was a lot of fun colors, and it was, of course, it's, it is mostly about the music, so I did love the music. But I do love that there were still very clear costume choices that Salvador made.
It's an interesting challenge to have like different groups, all the different a cappella groups, and like how am I going to visually make them distinct from each other?
Yes. And it's, I think that's one of the reasons I put those group pictures in the front. You don't really see that clear distinction as much in the rest of the movie, unfortunately, because most of the other scenes where you see all the groups together are like the riff off, which it's so dark that, I think he had to be very specific about blending them together. And the only reason you realize they were groups were because they were like standing together and singing together. So yes, that first shot I think was really, really great in showing us how these groups were differentiated and what makes them who they are.
Yeah.
And then of course we see more of that differentiation in the sequels.
Totally. Great job.
Thank you. You too.
Thanks.
These were fun movies to rewatch.
Yeah, clearly we had a great time with these. Like, what a joy.
Yes, so true. Well, thanks, Sarah. I'm excited.
Me too. This was a fun one, and we don't know what our next theme is, but we'll figure it out, and I'm sure it'll be equally fun.
Yes. So please remember to rate us. We are still taking people's ratings, and I believe we are still putting $1 towards
Dress for Success.
What's it called? Yes, Dress for Success. My brain is starting to shut down now.
Yeah, please do. That's like the single best thing you can do for the show. If you like our show, is rate and review. That's for any podcast. If you like it and you want to support it, that's how you can do so. So please do that.
Yes.
Helps us get to more people.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, and we've definitely been having a slow and steady stream of followers that have added us. So it's really exciting.
Yeah. We're glad that people are enjoying it because we enjoy making it. So that's what matters.
Well, we're looking forward to sharing more movies with you guys in the next episode. So we'll see you on the next one.
See you then. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to The Costume Plot. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Costume Plot. If you have a question, comment, or movie suggestion, you can email us at thecostumplot@gmail.com.
Our theme music is by Jesse Tim, and our artwork is by Jojo Siu. Please rate and review us wherever you listen to your podcasts.